faculty looked at this offer, they understood that it was a step back.
We've now just wasted 2 weeks on this exercise of a forced ratification vote.
I think it's a resounding message to College Employer Council that they need to actually be bargaining on faculty's terms.
No way, absolutely not from college faculty and staff today. 86% of them rejected the latest contract offer from the colleges. Now a major step by the province. This news breaking right now. The province announced it is tabling legislation to send the contract dispute between striking faculty and the College Employer Council to binding arbitration. This after a 1-month strike. Let's bring in Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley right now. Mike, this is already in the legislature as we speak.
Yeah, Dwight, this is all happening in the past few minutes. First, we get a statement from Premier Wynne. Turns out that Premier Kathleen Wynne, so she had met this afternoon for about half an hour with both sides. This is the first time that she got directly involved in the talks. This did kickstart the talks, but Wynne, we found out, set a 5 o'clock deadline for the two sides to come up with some sort of an agreement about whether they could either settle there at the table or agree to some sort of voluntary binding arbitration. So it turns out that did not happen. They did not get an agreement by 5 o'clock. About 20 minutes ago, we got this statement. We've heard from the parties. They've reached an impasse in negotiations. They've not agreed to binding arbitration. So the government is immediately tabling legislation that would end the dispute and return Ontario college students to the classroom where they belong. So just in the past few minutes in the legislature, the government brought in this motion because it's a sudden thing. They had to get a unanimous consent, and the NDP said no. They were asking to be able to have the legislature sit over the course of the weekend because the legislature doesn't sit now after Thursday. So it's a little unclear right now when the legislation would be able to get in the House and passed. We're just standing by to find out what's about to happen with that. Dwight?
And just to explain, Mike, the legislature is trying to force them into binding arbitration. They're not forcing them back to work per se with legislation.
It's both, actually, Dwight. So it would be on the one hand binding arbitration, and at the same time back to work legislation. So it would send the college teachers back to work. The government was hoping to have that happen literally by Monday, so the students would be back in class on Monday, and at the same time the contract would then go to binding arbitration so that an arbitrator would force an agreement on the two parties.
So like the Premier said on CBC Radio today, we could have students back in class by early next week.
Yeah, no, so that it could be Monday. You got to realize this is a very significant step. The Liberals have been very much not wanting to have to force an agreement in this situation. It's quite possible that the agreement that comes out will be to the liking of college faculty. Interesting, earlier today, OPSU President Smokey Thomas specifically thanked Premier Wynne for not in his words, interfering in the collective bargaining process. Whether they're going to see this as an interference in that collective bargaining process, I'm not sure. We're sure to be getting reaction from OPSU and from the colleges very soon.
Yes, we know the students will be happy. All right, thank you, Mike. Let's get back to our breaking news tonight. The province's move to end the college faculty strike by legislating them back to work. Let's head back to Mike Crawley, who's at Queen's Park. And Mike, all of this just developing right now. You just spoke to the government and the NDP. What is the update?
Okay, so Dwight, the government just before 6 o'clock convened in the legislature just behind me. They tried to introduce the back to work legislation, and because this is an exceptional thing, they needed what's called unanimous consent of all of the parties in the House to be able to do that. The NDP said no, and what that means then is that the government is going to call the legislature back for an extraordinary sitting tomorrow, starting at 3 o'clock. They will then introduce the legislation, and what this legislation would do is it would do two things. It would order the college faculty back to work. It would also set up a process for binding arbitration. So the government isn't imposing a contract, but it is sending the contract dispute to an arbitrator to create a mandatory settlement. So then 3 o'clock tomorrow, the legislature sits, the government introduces this legislation. The NDP has said they will try to block it at every stage. And what that might mean then is that the legislature is going to have to sit on Saturday and Sunday to continue the debate. So at this stage, we don't know exactly when the legislation is going to pass. The government is saying, had the NDP said yes, that they could have got it all done and dusted tonight, and they would know that college faculty would be back to work on Monday. As it is, the Monday target is still a possibility. The Liberal government is saying if the NDP stalls this process, it might mean that more days of next week's classes are chipped away before the colleges can get back up and running. Dwight?
And Mike, has the NDP made it clear to you why they're doing this at this point?
Yeah, so the NDP says they are in principle opposed to back to work legislation. So, they know the government has a majority and the government will eventually get it passed, but the NDP is doing what they can to try to slow down the process. We're waiting to see how the union reacts to this. We understand that OPSU, the union, is going to be holding a news conference sometime later this evening. Dwight?
Thank you for the update. Mike Crawley at Queen's Park staying on top of this for us. Now, this strike has taken a toll on students, and even if they're back in class next week, some wonder if it's just too late to save the semester. Lauren Pelly is live at George Brown College's St. James campus for us tonight. And Lauren, you've been speaking to students about this over the last couple of days.
That's right, Dwight. I've been speaking with students, and some say the damage might already been done based on how much class time they've already missed during this month-long strike. Students have told me about their mental health concerns, the anxiety they've faced as they miss class after class. They've also told me about the financial strain of this. How do you get a job if you don't know when you're going to be returning to class? Now, I also spoke to several students today who said that they're very anxious about what could happen, and they wonder how you could possibly cram in the missed class time into what's left of the school year.
Personally, I've been really frustrated, and it's made me very anxious, and just the whole not knowing when it's going to end and how I know that it's bothered a lot of us in the program. Every day it just seems like we're just stuck in this period of not knowing when we're going to go back. It definitely has set back a lot. We have asked the school what they're going to do to compensate us, so we're worried about finances, things like that, but it was already a very demanding and time-sensitive program, and with it pushed back this way, I really don't know how we are planning to catch up, really.
Yeah, for example, me as an exchange student, I have to leave Canada in May, so if they expand the semester, I couldn't finish it this year. So I'm very worried about it, because I'm also have to finish my degree in Spain, so they have to convalidate me the subjects I'm taking this semester. So if they suspend the semester, I don't know what's going to happen to me.
Now, as we've previously reported, some students are fighting for financial compensation in the wake of the strike. A class action lawsuit has already been filed. But as for how this all plays out and when the strike will officially end, obviously, as Mike Crawley told us, we're going to have to wait and see what happens over the weekend. Dwight?
Lauren, thank you.